Hi, can you hear me? My name is Sixta Martinez. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Affairs and External Affairs at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. It's been an incredibly positive experience for the CFPB here in the Twin Cities area. We're very excited to get this started. I'll do my best to guide us through what I expect will be extremely dynamic and telling discussion about the consumer financial landscape here in the Twin Cities. Let me talk to you a little bit about how this is going to work. First, we're going to hear from your leaders here at the Twin City at a community panel. Before that, Raj Date, the leader at the CFPB, will share some remarks with you. After his remarks, we'll be joined by a panel. Those include Prentice Cox, a professor at the University of Minnesota, Amanda Bardoner, David McGee, and Julie Guggen. But we want to spend the majority of the evening hearing from you. This is your opportunity to tell us your stories. We'll have an open mic session to listen to you and your experiences about student loans, credit cards, mortgages, and other consumer financial products and services. So now I'd like to introduce our leader at CFPB, Raj Date. Raj Date is a special advisor to the U.S. Department of the Treasury on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Try saying that 10 times in a row. He comes to CFPB with tremendous knowledge of financial services through his work at Deutsche Bank and Capital One. He also brings his perspective as a policy advocate. Most recently, prior to arriving at CFPB, Raj founded Cambridge Winter, a nonprofit think tank that injected invaluable fact-based evidence and research that helped to inform the Dodd-Frank debate, which, as you all know, led to the creation of the CFPB. We're incredibly fortunate to have the benefit of his talent and expertise to guide the CFPB through these economic times and through a challenging political landscape. Please join me in welcoming Raj Date.
You're supposed to walk around the other side, giving me time to calibrate again. You jump right up the stairs. Let's bring that up a bit. All right, people should be able to hear that better now. Great.
Okay, well, thank you, Zixta, for that introduction. And before I do anything else, I want to say two things. First, on behalf of everybody from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, thank you all for kind of being our hosts here in Minneapolis. It has been, even before now, a terrific day for us, and I think a quite terrifically productive one, and I appreciate that. Second, thank you in advance to our panel, our consumer panel, who will be joining us in a second. You've all done impressive work on behalf of consumers, and you've done that work, and you do that work, and we appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. Also, you may have heard that we recently brought Minnesota's own Skip Humphrey on board to join and lead our Office of Older Americans at the CFPB. Unfortunately, and ironically, Skip is not with us in Minnesota today because he is back in Washington, D.C., working very hard to get the Office of Older Americans off to the great start that it deserves. But we are ecstatic to have him on board at the CFPB. So thank you all for coming. The CFPB has been open for business for 97 days. We launched on July 21st, and we launched with a single goal, and that's to make the markets for consumer financial products work. Make them work for consumers and the responsible firms that serve them, and for the economy as a whole. We want to make sure that the prices and the risks of financial products are clear. We want to make sure that consumers can decide what are the best consumer financial products for them. And we want to make sure that there's a level playing field for businesses to compete honestly for consumer business. The Bureau, as you know, and as Zixta mentioned, was created by the Dodd-Frank Act. And it was created in response to the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. Before Dodd-Frank, responsibility for administering the various federal consumer financial laws was splintered across 7 different agencies. Literally 7 different agencies were responsible for it, and no one of those 7 agencies had consumer protection as its sole goal in financial services. The result was that no single agency was on the hook for protecting consumers, truly on the hook. There was no real accountability. This was true in the years leading up to the crisis, even as consumer lending was exploding across the country. Big ticket loans and small ticket loans, long-term, short-term, secured, unsecured, everything was booming. And the boom times would never end, or so people behaved. Over a period of less than 10 years, from 1999 to 2007, household debt almost tripled to $12 trillion in the U.S. And as households were taking on all this debt, too often the cost and the risk of that debt was not clear. The prime example of this lack of clarity and the epicenter of the global financial crisis is the U.S. mortgage market. Prospective homeowners were entering deals they just didn't understand because of a lack of transparency. During the housing bubble, it's useful to remember that the fastest growing loans were also the ones that were some of the most complicated. Hybrid ARMs and option ARMs and interest-only loans. These were the fastest growing components of the market during the credit bubble. To properly calculate the cost and the risk of products like that, borrowers would have to have a sophisticated knowledge of things like rate caps and rate spreads and have a perspective on future yield curve shapes. And I know bond traders who have difficulty with all that. So imagine how average consumers felt at the time. This lack of transparency saddled too many people with mortgages they couldn't afford. And now we're living painfully with the consequences. Again, Dodd-Frank created the CFPB to be the single point of accountability for consumer financial protection, whether it's mortgages or student loans or credit cards or a whole host of other consumer financial services. We're looking out for the consumer. Before we even opened our doors, we launched our first Know Before You Owe initiative, and that project was about consolidating the seemingly duplicative federal mortgage disclosure forms. This afternoon, we launched a second Know Before You Owe project that we hope will be the first step in improving transparency in student loans, which is now, behind only mortgages, the largest segment of consumer debt in the country. This project is aimed at assisting the Department of Education in its efforts to develop a simple, one-page financial aid shopping sheet for students and their families. That shopping sheet, that prototype that we've designed, is designed to both clearly disclose the cost and the risk of various student loans and to allow students to compare aid offers from various different schools. We are very happy to be working with the Department of Education to help solve problems in this area. As we go about our job, we will be, and we are already, obsessively data-driven. We are committed to basing our decisions on the best available data and to assembling a great team of economists and social scientists and market veterans to figure out what all that data means. But we know, we're not naive about it. We know that the available data can only get us so far. And that's why we've launched our Know Before You Owe projects, and that's why we're here today. We invite public feedback every day on our website, but we also want to hit the road to talk to people across the country. We're planning more of these town halls throughout the country as we continue to build up the Bureau. The more we hear from consumers from all walks of life and from all corners of America, the better we will be able to do our jobs. So we want you to tell us your story. Your story's good and your story's bad, about your experiences with consumer financial products. We want to know from the public what you think the problems are and where you think we should concentrate our efforts. Your stories will help inform how we work to protect consumers and promote a more transparent and a more competitive financial marketplace. Thank you again for being here, and I look forward to hearing about your experience.